Welcome, welcome, all of our Facebook family. We are so excited that you are with us here today as we go over some empowering tools in regards to real estate. So, welcome. I am so excited about what you're going to learn today because these are all the things that other real estate agents don't want you to know. So, I'm glad you checked in so that we can give you the secrets because, hey, we have nothing to hide. We want you to feel empowered and we want to make sure that you make one of the best decisions you can possibly make. Buying a home. Think about that. What other decision outside of who you're going to marry is bigger than buying a home? It's like one of your biggest
Yeah,
purchases
right?
ever. And so,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things people think about, oh my God, once I say yes, there's no turning back. It's like that guy at the, what is it, the guy that has cold feet in the beginning?
Yeah.
He's standing there. He's like, oh my God. And they tell him you can never turn back. But guess what? In real estate, there are 7 ways to cancel on a contract. And guess what? Today, I have one of the best local experts in Hawaii to be able to share with you and give you some tips so that you can have a stress free transaction. So, are you excited, Facebook family? Are you ready?
Hey, Debbie.
Hello.
How are
Hi.
you? Long time no see.
Hi, Debbie. Hi, beautiful. Glad to have you. You looking for your unmute button? Well, we are so excited to have you and all of our Facebook family. So, are we all ready to begin? Are you excited?
Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. Well, I would like to introduce to you one of the greatest, I call him a real estate general here in Hawaii, and that is Mr. Dan Ihara. He has been the top 100 of Hawaii's best and amazing real estates for over 12 years, according to Hawaii Business Magazine. So you've come to the right spot to come and learn today. He's also the founder of what's called the Complete Solution, and it's made up of family of businesses that make sure that you're taken care of in every possible way when it comes to buy, sell, rent, clutter, stage, move, or age in place. The hard team has it all for you. So today, let's enjoy as we talk about the 7 ways to cancel. So, Dan, can you help us with what those 7 will be? What will that look like today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, MJ. This is really the most important portion of real estate, and actually the greatest passion that I personally have is advocating for our clients and looking out for their best interests. And there's 7 different ways you can actually cancel a contract. So when you get in an agreement, let's say we find something, right, MJ? MJ is
Yes.
amazing at finding clients their dream homes. And when Michelle finds her dream home, that's just the beginning, right, Michelle? Right? We want to make sure that once we get the agreement, now we have to do really good due diligence, right? And there's 7 different ways that we know, and we want you to know that you can actually cancel on the contract with basically no liability. You're getting all your deposits back as long as you're done within certain time frames. Now, we're going to cover all of these in detail, but I'm just going to run them down for you. So, J1 home inspection, that's when you go in and do a home inspection on the property. Lending, whenever you buy a home, if you're getting a loan, that is another contingency in the event that you can't qualify for it, and or if the appraisal doesn't come out, there's an opportunity for you to cancel. And then also the seller's disclosure statement, the termite inspection report, the title report, surveying, as well as condominium documents. And we'll go through all of these together one at a time, and we'll provide you some information that will help you in your buying process, but also give you the confidence to know that you have a team of folks that are going to look out for your best interests.
Awesome. Well, I am ready to start this. And we get to talk about one of the biggest ones. This is probably one, I believe, the top deal breaker of any transaction, and that is the home inspection. When you go to open house, the music is normally maybe playing, it's staged beautifully, and you're like, yes, this is amazing. but sometimes you don't know what those behind the scenes look like. You don't know if there's a leak behind the walls. So it is this home inspection that is a major determining factor. And we like to share some stories on what that looks like and what you should be prepared for when it comes to a home inspection. So, Dan, can you break that down for us, please?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the timeline. So basically, the timeline says once you get an agreement, you have anywhere from typically 10 to 15 days to inspect the home. You're giving an opportunity to get into the home, inspect it. Now we're going to hire a professional and certified home inspector. There's a lot of home inspectors out there, trust me, but they're not all equal, right? Just like all realtors aren't equal. So we're looking at the best in the industry. So we have the best in the industry that we provide to our clients, and they're going to check everything. I mean, what are they going to check? They're going to check from the roof. They're going to get on the roof, or they're going to get a drone image of the roof. They're going to get into the attic, into the crawl space. So one of the first things as we walk through the house, we want to figure out how do we have access. Usually it's in a bedroom or a hallway. There'll be a scuttle, a little opening that has a cover on it. It's called a scuttle room, and we walk into that and we inspect everything in the attic, right? Because we don't know what's out there until we inspect it. We actually had a client that we were helping buy a home, and the inspector went in there, and in the very far corner of the attic. Now, keep in mind, this owner, the seller, they bought it 2 years earlier with the agent that's helping them sell it, right? And I felt really bad for the agent, sort of. So, Michelle, imagine this. The inspector goes up. I follow him into the attic, and he points to his flashlight to this beam in the very far corner, like it's really hard to get to, but you could see it. It was actually snapped. It was cracked.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And the roof is Monier tile, so that tile is heavy, right? And
Yes.
I come down, I take a picture of it. I go, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but we have a problem that we're going to need remedying. And let me show you the picture of it. I showed her the picture of it. Literally, the seller's in the house at the home inspection. Normally not normal for us, but in this case they did it. The seller was there with the buyer's agent. I mean, the buyer's agent of its time, which is now the seller's agent. And I showed her the picture, and she was like, her mouth just dropped, and she goes, "How come we didn't find that?" And I just turned my back and walked away because I didn't want to be that uncomfortable, because her agent didn't inspect it because it was there when she bought it, and it cost her thousands of dollars, right? Because we found it and she didn't. So our inspector is going to go into the attic, on the roof, check out the kitchens, the bath, all the appliances, your electrical and plumbing. Now, a couple of things about the electrical and plumbing is it's the service to the house through the main distribution panel and the outlets and switches. Okay, that's on the electrical side. On the plumbing side, know that the plumbing, when people talk about plumbing, most people just generalize the word plumbing, right? It's actually two different components, right? One is the water supply line, right? And if the water supply line in older homes, sometimes are galvanized, that could be problematic, right? Because those galvanized pipes, which are probably 50 plus years old, when they get corroded, they rust on the inside. And I've seen homes, Michelle, right, that we go into these old homes that have been abandoned for a few months. I turn on the water and it's all brown. It's like, really? My family's going to drink this? No. We do not want your family to drink. So that's the thing that we want to change to copper. Now, once it's copper, that's going to last forever, right? And so that's one thing we want to look at is the water supply line. The other thing is the waste line, right? The waste line, so every time you turn on the water, you flush the toilet, right? You take a shower, it goes somewhere. And that somewhere is to the sewer lateral out into the street, right? And with that, it's really important to know that, oh, that wasn't sure. Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you can see this now. My fault. Technical glitch. Thank you. That was my beautiful wife. Anyway, the waste line is really important because that takes everything off of your property into what we call the sewer lateral. The sewer lateral runs along the street, right? It goes into in Hawaii, it's the Board of Water Supply that manages that. And anyways, those waste lines, if they get old, anywhere 50 years or older, those can corrode they can crack, they can clog. Right? These are cast iron pipe that goes underneath the house. And what we're going to want to do is we recommend and our procedure is anything that's 50 years old, we want to scope that line.
Yes.
So what is scoping? It takes the camera from the farthest orifice all the way to the street. And we want to see what that line looks like. And I got to tell you, I wish I should have saved those pictures, Michelle. There were some that were totally cracked. There were some with roots growing into it, right? And there was one that actually had a little mouth. He was cute as ever. These big round ears. So it was like, it was hilarious. And he was really cute looking, but yeah, nobody wants a sewer rat, right?
No.
Right.
Only on my TV, Mickey. That's it.
Right,
No.
right. So what we did is we scoped the line, and now if there's a problem under the slab, that could be a significant problem. Today's world, though, there are solutions to that, right? There's companies out there today that pretty much 10 or 15 years ago didn't have this. Is they would fill it up with this epoxy material, but they put a balloon in it and it pushes it along the line here. That thing now, I'm told, can last, they warranty that for 40, 50 years.
Wow.
So there are solutions to problems. Number one is we want to identify the problem. Number two, we want to bring you a solution to the problem, right? All this came from, thousands of transactions and helping folks go through these very unusual situations and problems, knowing that there's ways to get around certain things that can be a solution. Really, really important. Next is if you have central air, we want to make sure you have an AC inspection, right?
Yeah.
And this AC inspection is typically not done by the same home inspector. Sometimes it is. But you want to look at where the ducts, how bad are the inside. So you've got the thermostat, you've got the condenser, you've got the blowers. These are all different components that you're going to be responsible for. And then you have the ducts that takes it, blows cold air and takes hot air out, right? Now you have an intake and you have an exhaust. Well, all of those we want to take a look at because there could be mold in there, right? And if it's black mold in there, you want to treat that so that your family doesn't breathe that air. Right? So all these things are highly, highly important to do. Many folks don't even think about doing it, right? And that's another major area. If you have a swimming pool, you want to make sure that all of your pool equipment are functioning, right? That you're to today's code. So that all the equipment there we have to have inspected. We talked about the waistline earlier. If you have gas, right, we want to make sure there's no leaks to the gas line. And know that you can actually have a leak underground that you won't smell. So what we want to do is pressurize that line and see if there's any gas leaks, right? The other is if you have photovoltaic or solar water, we want to make sure that that's inspected well. And that typically is inspected by the people that actually put it in, right? And if that company is no longer around, we have to find somebody who's willing to inspect it, because what if that fails? If that fails to work properly, then the benefit of why you bought it, I mean, there's significant thousands of dollars of benefit of having that, is gone, right? I mean, you've lost that. So we never want that to happen. We also want to find out how often it's been serviced. Most people don't service their photovoltaic, right? Apparently that's actually supposed to be cleaned every year to improve its capacity and ability to absorb that power. And then once we find out in the inspection, we're going to go and get professionals who can give us an estimate to remedy it. Like, what's it going to cost, right? What is it that has to be done? And then we're going to negotiate with the seller's agent on these items and in a cooperative approach, meaning, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm sure you didn't know of these things. Here are some things that we didn't know of when we put in this price offer. And so as you can imagine, let's come to a meeting of the minds to make us whole, to make everything fair, because they didn't know of it usually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the home inspection is really, really important, right, Michelle?
It's so important. I'll never forget. My buyers had found their dream home that they are actually the third backup offer for.
Right.
Um, and it was in a beautiful Kaneohe. It was a gorgeous property.
Yeah.
Um, and they just knew this was it. But when we did that home inspection, it was all the things that you could not see. There was
Yeah.
over 8 leaks in that property. The structure, and they cut so many corners. So I know a lot of people gravitate to new construction thinking, hey, new construction is it because it's not old. But how a lot of times designers and those that do construction sometimes cut corners of costs, and that does show up and can show up when it comes to a home inspection.
Yeah. Our home inspectors have this infrared gun, and what that gun is it can look behind the drywall, and it can
Yes.
sense if there's any moisture there, right? And if it senses it, then he has a moisture detector to determine the percentage of moisture there, right? So he's got two significant, very expensive tools that's going to help you see things that you can't normally see. Because when we walked into it, right, Michelle,
Oh,
it didn't look like a problem, right?
gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. We want to make sure that you have good due diligence because you don't want to close on a property and find out there's a problem later, right? We want to make sure we flush everything out up front. So, yeah, this is sometimes a contentious portion, but the way we approach it is just information that maybe the seller didn't understand, right, or didn't know about. Right? Cool.
And that's what's good about having a good experienced agent when it comes to your home inspection, because all of that Dan talked about normally has a time frame between 10 to 14 days. So what is good about having an experienced team is because we will have certified inspectors teed up, and we know the specialists that need to be contacted and prepared to assist you, as well as already having information from, as Dan said, from
Yeah.
so many other previous transactions to be able to prepare you that most critical 10 to 14 days of your transaction. So outside
Yeah.
of the home inspection, what else is the most important? It's all about the finances. Can you afford it? What
Right.
does lending look like? And so, Dan, can you share what the process of lending looks like in a transaction?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when we help our buyers, one of the first steps is getting pre-approved, right? We want to know what's comfortable for you financially on a monthly basis, know what you can get a loan for. We'll get a pre-approval letter. We're going to even have that even before you start shopping many times, because what if you find something, they're going to want a pre-approval letter, right? They'll want a verification of cash funds. So we preload all of that effort up in the front and not wait till you actually find something, because we don't know when you're going to find it, but when you find it, we got to be able to be prepared to activate on moving forward quickly. Today's hot market, you have to really be prepared, and you have to present yourself in a way such that you're a strong buyer versus other
Yes.
buyers, right? That's what the sellers are going to, that's how they determine who they're going to work with. Now, as far as the contingencies and canceling is, in the event you don't get a loan application or a pre-approval letter within the first time period, which is typically 5 days, yeah, they can cancel on you. Well, that's not a problem for us because we already have that up front. And then
Yes.
15 days prior to closing, you're required to get, it's about 10 days prior to closing, to get a conditional pre-approval letter. That's really important. And it says that you're going to be able to get that loan based on you satisfying these conditions. Now, we already want to know what those conditions are. You want to have a local lender that can perform on those, because in the event you don't deliver that conditional letter, the buyer actually can cancel on you. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a problem, right? So we've had buyers who said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to use Lending Tree or all these online services," and obviously there's not a human being we can call to say, "Hey, you missed a date," because now you're in jeopardy, right? So they can actually cancel on you. In the event that something happens, we actually had a client that unfortunately lost his job like 3 days before he's going to close.
Oh,
And because of that, he was able to opt out, right? And so know that that is an opportunity for you. Very rarely is it exercised, but it is an opportunity for you to back out. Now, what we really want to do is create a strong strategy for you based on how much down you're going to put in, what the price is, and we're going to work with the lender very closely to make sure that the lender gives the seller's agent confidence that they can close. So one of the things that we also do is our lenders do what they call a strong buyer call. What a strong buyer call is, we ask our lenders to call the seller's agent and advocate for you, the buyer, to let the seller's agent know that, one, they're an experienced agent, two, a loan officer, two, they have everything they need, and three, there's nothing that's going to stop us from closing. Okay, that's what you want. You want a team approach that gives the seller's agent confidence that you have the financial ability to close, because otherwise you're competing with other folks. Now, what's really interesting, and that's why we're able, right, Michelle, to get more of our clients the property they want when they're competing, is very few people do this. Very few. In fact, we sell a lot of homes, right? We rarely get that call. We rarely do, because most teams don't do that. Most individual agents don't do that. Most loan officers don't do that. And this is the process that we know will help our buyers get what they want on the property. So really important on that strategy.
Thank you for sharing that. So termites, those little critters, how important is that in a transaction? Man, there's so many stories about termites, and I'd love for Dan to kind of share what that looks like, especially my VA buyers. It is required to have a termite inspection. There is no way around it. So let's talk about what the purpose is on that. What do they do? And what is the impact of the termite inspection reports?
Yeah. And who pays for it, right? So in the contract, you get to select, the buyer typically gets to select the termite inspector. We have some of the best in the industry that can inspect. They're highly detailed. And basically, if you're looking at a wood structure, they have this stick, and I wish I had it with me. It's called a tapping stick. They tap on all the wood to see if there's any vacancies in it.
Yeah.
When I say by vacancies, I mean little holes in the wood. See, because if it sounds different, that means there's a vacancy. If there's a vacancy, that means there's probably termite damage, right, inside that you can't see. So the buyer gets to select it. The seller has to pay for the inspection. Now, what they do is they go in and investigate to see if there's any active termites, any evidence of past termites, and any conducive conditions that could cause termites to want to be attracted to it. A conducive condition is any time where wood touches the ground, right? Wood touches soil, because there's two types of termites. There's drywood termites and ground termites. Now, drywood termites, they eat from the outside in. What is that? It looks like, so termites know that termites eat, and then they have feces. I mean, they poop, right? Right? Well, their poop it looks like sand, right? And so in old homes, you'll see little sand droppings around, or you could even see it in furniture sometimes. What is that? Yeah, that's their poop, right? So that's the drywood termites. The ground termites, they eat from the inside out. The interesting thing about ground termites is they come in colonies of millions. Like, I've actually seen these colonies before. We actually raised them in a science project for my son at NIPAC. So yeah, it was a cool project, and we studied them, right? Well, why you want to know this is there's a big difference between the two. Now, tenting will solve the problem. If there's drywood termites, tenting will solve that problem. It'll tent it, it'll poison everything there. Now, know that once the tent comes off, the very next minute, termites can fly back into the house. That's what can happen, right? It'll take a long time for them to create damage, though. But ground termites, they eat from the inside out. They live in the ground, right? And they can actually bore through concrete, right? So, and these homes that are what we call post and pier is where there's a concrete post. We call it like a tofu block, and a wooden post that comes down, okay? And so that's called post and pier. Now, between the concrete and the wooden pier, there's a metal pan called a flashing, okay? So the reason for that flashing is it prevents termites from eating through the concrete to the wood. See,
Wow, yeah.
they cannot eat through metal, right? But they can eat through concrete. And that's
Mhm.
why some homes in many areas, you can't see the damage. They ate through the slab of the house, and now they're into the beams of the house. And now they'll bore through the entire thing, and you may not see it, okay? So that's why the termite inspection is really, really important. And you want to make sure that you understand the significance of it. Now, keep in mind, if the termite damage is so great that it negatively impacts the value of the property, you can actually cancel. Now, we
Yes.
haven't had anybody do that. It's really not necessary to do that because it's all about solutions, right, Michelle?
Mhm.
How do
Yes.
you remedy that? If there's no way to remedy it, absolutely cancel. If there is a way to remedy it, then you could move forward. We had one that was a really old house in Kamiki. It's probably 70 years old, right? It's post and pier. One of the beams, I crawled under the house. It was maybe about a 3-foot crawl space. I did army crawl with the inspector because I wanted to see it. I crawled under the house, and literally the beam that's about 6 inches by 4 inches, you could almost stick your hand in it. It was that big of a cavity, right? It was really, really bad. And so most people would say, oh no, this is a major problem, the house is going to fall down. If you don't fix
Mm.
it, it could be a problem. Well, all we did was we had a guy come in and he does epoxy restoration. He fills the entire cavity with epoxy. Now, epoxy is stronger than wood. Termites don't eat it. And you can sand it down to a really beautiful sharp edge if you wanted to. Anyways, this home we saved, right? We prevented that future problem from happening again, and we saved the impact of the structural integrity concerns that the buyer typically had. Again, it goes back to remedy,
Yes.
identifying the problem and finding a solution to it, right? A lot, I can go on. Again, we closed over 1,100 transactions. You can imagine how many really bad homes we've seen on both the buy
Yeah.
and the sell side. Okay? And it's really about identifying it and finding a solution.
Thank you so much for that, because I can imagine how many people did not know the effects of a termite and the difference and how much
Yeah.
they can impact a property. But like you said, thank God there are awesome treatment and things to prevent us from having to cancel and being able to proceed. So our next one we have is the title report. This is a really good one. I love this one because it really talks about you get to understand the rights and obligations of ownership. And we have three really, I call it real estate terms here that Dan, I'd love for you to break down for someone who's a first time home buyer. When you mention the word easement or encroachment or encumbrance, can you educate them on today? What does this look like and why is it so important in the title report?
Yeah. So thanks, MJ. So when we sell homes, we order the title report in advance before going on the market. And the reason for that is we want to understand anything that's going to impact a buyer's decision to buy. Okay? And it's interesting when we sell homes that most of the time we find things that the seller didn't know, right? They didn't ever do research because it really, very few of these things actually are visual, right? You really can't tell that they exist unless you do some due diligence and unless you know what they are. An easement is a right to access. So an easement could be a sewer easement, could be a drainage easement, could be a utility easement, it could be a driveway easement. In Haiku Plantation, Michelle, this is a really interesting one. Haiku Plantation, they have a Hawaiian activist easement, which means I went to this house, it must have been an acre and a half. It was a big parcel, right? And I go to her house and I go, there's a fence here in the backyard and another fence here. I go, why do you have two fences there? She said, oh, because I have an easement on my property. I go, really? It's for the Hawaiians to get to the heiau. They have a right to get to it.
Yes.
And knowing that you have it, you understand it. So, but the most common ones are driveway easements, a sewer easement, a utility easement. That gives them a right to access. So let's say you had a sewer easement on your property. Number one, you cannot build on it. And actually, you can't build within 5 feet of it. So you're going to lose valuable land. Know that you cannot build on those areas of an easement. Um, if it's in the middle of the property, typically it's not. Typically it's around the perimeter. And we had one just recently. So Wailaiki, almost $2 million homes right up there. And there's a long driveway. So the beautiful thing about this house, it's not on a busy road. There's a nice long driveway that got to the house. So it was quiet, had a great view, right? And so the sellers were selling the house. And when you drive into the property, it looks like it's a flag lot. Now, we already knew that there wasn't one because before we even put in the offer, we did some research, right? We found out that it's actually a separate tax record. See, it was really interesting. The house that we were buying didn't have a legal access without ownership of that tax record. It was really bizarre. And the seller's agent didn't even know that it existed, right?
Wow.
They didn't do any research. You can find that in the title report. Okay, that's where you're going to find that. But you can also find that on the plat map. So a lot of this stuff we're going to know before we even put in an offer what that is. In this case, we did. We requested that the sellers sell that property along with a separate property, which is a driveway. Now, it was also an easement because there's another house in front of it that has an easement or a right to use the driveway. Right? So know that that's the things that you're buying. And it's really important because you can't park on the entrance of that driveway because you gave somebody a right to access. Right? You can park beyond that point that is not encumbered by an easement. Now, an encroachment is anytime there's an improvement that protrudes beyond 0.5 feet onto your property, either by your neighbor or you encroaching on them. And that's an encroachment, right? And that'll be in the title report as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the surveys area in the next slide. And then the encumbrances, and the encumbrances are all of these things. These are all encumbrances. A loan is encumbrance. Alimony is encumbrance. A lawsuit is an encumbrance. Those are usually the most of the common ones that are there. If there's a divorce decree that had an encumbrance on it, all of these things, what you want to make sure you are able to do is buy the property clear of all of these issues, right?
Yes.
And anything that's existing that you know about it. The things that you would be typically an encroachment or an easement that you're going to know about. Other things could be an association, right? Some areas people buy on Lower Wailaiki not knowing there's actually an association attached to it, right? And that's also an encumbrance. So encumbrances limit your enjoyment of their asset, right, of what you're buying. That's my layman's term of the definition of an encumbrance, right? And then all that can be found, right, Michelle, in the title report.
Yes.
Right?
And
So
it's
really
so surprising
important.
how many people don't look at the title report and make sure your clients are protected and taken care of. That is one of the practices you make sure that we do in detail. And a lot of these things we find out in advance because we look at many of these things. We pull up building reports. You said, Michelle, what did you do? Did you check this before you even submitted an offer? Have I checked building permits? Have I looked at the plat map? So a lot of these things can be alleviated when you have the right people on your team. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I think this is a good leeway to our next one, which is the survey. What is the purpose of that? Who does it? Who pays it? Who owns the improvements? And as you mentioned, encroachments. I believe you mentioned we'll be able to talk about that in the survey and what that looks like. And some other things you should know about that, like the de minimis.
Yeah. So the survey is a boundary map that's drawn out by a surveyor. It's a licensed surveyor. Today's technology, they have a GPS, so it's highly accurate. And in older neighborhoods, I'd say probably 60–70% of the time, there's going to be an encroachment. And you kind of wonder, like, why is that so common, right? And I asked the surveyors this. The answer that I got was, number one, the land moves, right? Our land moves, right? So it could move an inch or two, that could make an encroachment. Also because of technology, right? Right now we use GPS. In the back in the old days, they put a pin over there, they use a little scope and they go, yeah, that looks good, right? Well, the technology today is so good that we're finding that. The biggest reason why we have encroachments is people never did a survey before they put the improvement up, right? So as a buyer, if you're selling, you want to do or any homeowner, if you want to put up a wall or a fence around the perimeter, make sure that whoever's doing that puts a string down from each pin on the survey corner points so they know that they're not going to encroach. It will not create a problem for you, right? So who pays for this? The seller pays for it. That's the good news, right? The seller is responsible to pay for and deliver to you, the buyer, a survey. Right? A survey, it's got a boundary map. It's typically 2 or 3 pages. One is a map, and then they describe each of the improvements around the perimeter, and it goes clockwise. So rock wall number A, chain link fence number B, hollow tile wall number C, and they're going to identify each of the improvements around the perimeter. Now, the question is who owns that, and it really depends on who built it.
Yeah.
So we had a client that bought a house in Coney Island. Actually, we were representing the seller and also the buyer who was a tenant. And we came to a meeting of the minds of the price and the terms, and everything was great. And it was exactly what the seller wanted, exactly what the buyer wanted. Everyone was happy. And we did the survey. And then we get to the survey, and one of the things that you'll know as part of our procedure as buying a property on a single family home is after we get the survey, we're going to go walk on the property with the survey in hand, because we want you to touch and feel all of the improvements that you're going to be responsible for as it relates to where it belongs on the property, right? So when you look at when you get to this property, you're going to see a wooden stake with the orange flag on it. That's only the indicator. That indicates where the corner pin is. That's not the corner pin, because you can pick that up and move that somewhere else. Okay, so know that that's not the corner pin. The corner pins are metal galvanized pipes that get pounded into the earth. And that's actually the corner point. Now, on concrete corner points, they usually spray it, and they'll actually cut into the concrete, but you'll have identifying points to know where your corner points are. So on this particular one, there was a wall with a really rickety fence on it, and it was completely on our client's property, client that wanted to buy it, right? Who was a tenant. And when we got the survey, we got to the property, and as I was walking on the property with him, I looked at the wall. I go, "Oh no, we have a problem." He goes, "What's the problem, Dan?" "We don't have a problem. That wall's on my property." I said, "Yeah, that's actually true. The problem isn't with the location. The problem is who owns the wall." He says, "Well,
Yes.
Dan, I own the wall." I said, "Well, I don't think you do." I said, "What do you mean? It's on my property." I go, "Well, take a look at the fence. The fence goes around your neighbor's house. And your house doesn't have that fence. So basically, that wall is completely on your property." And he says to me, "Michelle, don't worry about it, Dan. I'm just going to tear it down." I go, "No, please don't do that." Right? That could be a problem. He says, "How is that a problem?" He says, "Because you don't own the wall." He says, "Yes, I do." I said, "Actually, you don't, because you didn't build it.
Exactly.
The neighbor built it. I mean, it's evident that it goes completely around his property. It's the same fence. If you tear that down, they can come and sue you for damaging his personal property." And that was a big aha for me. It's like, I didn't quite understand that way back in the day. It's like, it's not where the improvement is, it's who built it.
That's
right?
good.
And so I actually had to go to the neighbor's house and actually ask him for a deed for that wall. He was willing to give it to us, and then he could tear it down, right? And that's how we protected him in that case. But just know that one of the first questions we're going to ask the seller's agent is, who owns a perimeter improvement? Okay, who owns them? And you can never take that for granted unless you're certain that your fence goes completely around the property. It's exactly the same, unlike any of the adjoining parcels, right? Really, really important to know who owns it, because that could be an encroachment that will impact you, and it runs in perpetuity, runs forever. So what if there's an encroachment on your property and it's to your benefit and you want to keep it there, then we can have an encroachment agreement, What is an encroachment agreement? It's a 4-page document that both parties, owners of the properties, have to sign and agree to. And basically it says that I did not intend to encroach on the property. If it becomes damaged or becomes a health hazard, I will remove it and put it back on the proper side. And the third major point is I'm not claiming any rights to the land underneath it, okay? So those are the key points that you want to make sure that are written clearly for you, and make sure that the seller has it executed properly on their side prior to you closing. See, because if there's an encroachment on your property and you say it's not a big deal, that runs forever. That doesn't ever go away. Yeah, it doesn't ever go away. So next time you sell the property, that's going to come up as an issue, right? And so when buying a property, know that at some point you will likely liquidate it and you'll sell it, and you don't want to take on somebody else's problems. Right? And the survey is a big deal. Now, what is de minimis? De minimis is an area that's allowable. So the de minimis in the state of Hawaii is 0.5 feet, 0.5 feet, 6 inches, not 0.51. So if a hollow tile wall is 0.5 feet into your property, or your wall is into the neighbor's property, it's actually okay. It's not a problem, right? But when it goes to 0.51, technically it is a problem, right? And that's when you're going to want either it removed or you want to have an encroachment agreement that allows it to stay there, right, under that portion of it. Right? We had another guy that had a rock wall that was, a rock wall is never perfectly straight, right? It undulates back and forth, and it was a retaining wall. It was a big retaining wall.
Oh, wow.
And basically, we put a string on one end or the other. We were selling it, and there was only 2 rocks that were protruding beyond the 0.5 feet. So basically, we had a contractor come, and the buyer's agent. We asked him if we cut this off, would you be okay? He said, yeah. And we actually didn't cut it off. We made them take it as a credit, right? So from the seller's perspective. If you were a buyer in that case, I would have them remedy it ahead of time. So it just depends on which perspective you're coming from. You want somebody that can advocate for you, that will eliminate or remove most of the issues of you eventually selling it at some point.
Excellent. I love that. When it comes to surveys, that's normally for single family properties. But what
Yeah.
is really important for condos is the condo docs. We love to call them on our purchase contract M1 docs. And this is really important for you, especially for those that are inquiring on condominiums or apartments here. So, Dan, can you kind of share what condo docs are? There are certain CPRs, and I'm sure you explain what a CPR is for us today, because there's also association docs. So, can you explain what the rules and regulations are and what we should be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. So again, when you buy a single family home, you are not limited unless you're in an association. But let's say you are an association of a single family. It might have regulations. It could have view plane restrictions. It could have how you can paint your house. They'll provide you with rules and regulations that the association requires. Like in Mililani area, you cannot build multiple structures. We had a large parcel once. We thought we could subdivide it. They won't allow that, right? So what it does is it puts restrictions on your ownership, right? It's an encumbrance that'll show up in the title report. So what you want to know is, will that encumbrance or restriction limit your enjoyment, right? So if somebody said to me, I want to enclose my lanai, well, we're going to have to go and investigate that. We have to go and find out, is it available? Can you do it? What are the rules of executing on that? How difficult? How much is it going to cost, right? We want to investigate all of that, because in these documents, back in the old days when I first started, Michelle, they would come printed in literally a stack like this much paper. There's like 4 yellow pages, well, who knows what yellow pages is. Anyway, just a phone book. But it was like it's a massive amount of reading to do, right? And unfortunately, that's a requirement that we're going to have our buyer go through, read everything. And if there's anything that you're interested to learn, meaning things that you want to know, then we will go find that out, right? But we're not 100% sure what's important to you until you tell us. And so if you say that, oh, I want to change my oil in my carport, or I want to put a clothesline up, or I want to change my roof, or put flooring in, there could be restrictions on those. And those things we can definitely find out for you, but we have to know from you what's important so that we can make sure that we can resolve it. Now, most condominiums, many townhomes, but most condominiums, because they're stacked, they have restrictions on simple things like flooring, right? What kind of flooring can you put in? What kind of padding is required, right? Now there's 5 grades of padding that they actually, if you put the wrong padding in, it could be in violation. Right? And what happens when you're in violation is, it's going to be in the board records. They're going to charge you. They're going to fine you until you remedy it. Right? And many of these places, there's 2 processes to any kind of improvement. One, you got to get the association approval, and the other is you may have to get a building permit for that work. Okay. So let's say we had one where client wanted to expand the enclose the lanai. Okay. So close the lanai, know that you also need to get a permit to do so. And when you do that, you might have to change other things. It might impact like where your outlets are, right? Really important of what the requirements are in accomplishing what you want to do. So the condominium docs will help you with understanding what the renovation improvements are, requirements, and it also will give you a maintenance fee schedule. What that is that basically many of these works associations have planned out all the major improvements that are required over the next 20 years. Right? And there's one paper that's called a maintenance fee schedule that gives us a clue as to how that's going to impact you. And how it's going to impact you is the increase in maintenance fees. Now, maintenance fees, we expect anywhere a rise from 3 to 5%, along with the rate of inflation typically. That is okay. It's common, right? Those things will, just like electricity, that's going to go up, right? Labor, that's going to go up. So we know that's going to happen. If it's beyond 5% for an extended period of time, that could be problematic. That could be a sign that the association didn't do the things they were supposed to do in a timely manner, such that now all that deferred maintenance is piling up and it's costing more today. Okay. We had a client, Michelle, that wanted to buy a townhouse, right? She wanted to buy a townhouse, she fell in love with it. And when we got to the association documents, the maintenance fee just rose to the previous year 10%, which is kind of a lot, right?
Yes.
And it went up to like $395 or something like that. And she said, oh, no, that's easy, I can do that. And yeah, it wasn't bad at the time. But then when we got the condominium documents, we saw that the next 10 years, they're expected to go up 5% to 10% every year. It basically doubled in 5 years, the maintenance fee doubled, right? And I said to her, this is going to be a problem. And she said, Dan, don't worry about it. I love the place. I can pay it. I said, well, here's something I want you to consider. I know you can pay it today, but what happens in the event that you want to sell it? What do you think that's going to do to the value of that asset? What's going to happen? What's going to happen if you need to sell it? What is going to happen to the marketability of that asset? And how much do you think it'll go up, right? And she goes, oh, yeah, that might minimize how much I can actually get out of it at the end. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Honestly, it took me about 10 days, Michelle, for her to accept the fact. And keep in mind, I was actually encouraging her to cancel, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew it was a bad situation for her, and I didn't want her to be in a bad situation. Long story short, we ended up canceling. We found something that was better, and still today they're constantly thanking me of the decisions that we helped them make that were sound decisions about their future, right? Because a lot of buyers, they get so excited about today. I want to move in today. I get emotionally attached today. All the bling, right? And we have to know that our job is to look out for your best interest, Mr. Buyer and seller, that we'll make good decisions down the road. And then there's assessments or violations. Now, know that if there's assessment on the property, you're going to be responsible for that, right? It runs with the next buyer. An assessment is anytime the association didn't collect enough money, something showed up that cost money, and now they have to pay a large amount of money. So assessments can come in the form of monthly payments, like paying off a loan, or a lump sum cost, like $10 or $20 or $30,000 in one lump sum. Now, if you're buying a property that has an assessment, know that you're buying that responsibility. And the question is, are you able or willing or ready to pay that? If it's small number, that's not too big of a deal. And if it has a short end date, yeah, not too big of a deal. But if there's no end in sight, that's going to be a problem. We're probably going to want to avoid those properties, right? Anytime there's a violation on the property, let's say the previous buyer just renovated it and it looks great, but then the violation came in from the association saying, hey, the neighbors downstairs complained. I understand you didn't put in the proper padding. That's going to run with you too. You're going to be responsible for that. So these are all the things that you want to make sure that you do very good due diligence, such that you don't take on somebody else's problem, right? And you're going to improve the value of that property over time. And so condominium documents are really important. A lot of folks take it for granted. A lot of folks don't really read them. We're going to ask you to read them, and we're going to ask you to let us know what's important so we can do some due diligence for you as well.
That was so powerful. And guess what? Facebook family and all those that are watching, that was final number 7. Thank you so much. I know that was just a wealth of information, a lot to put in your toolbox. And we also have all of our recordings of this. If you want to go back and you want to take additional notes, please make sure to find those recordings and continue to feed yourself. But as we provided you those 7 ways to counsel, when you look at that, it's so important of creating a strategy around that to really be looking in advance to overcome any obstacles that come your way. So, Dan, briefly, can you just share what the 5 steps looks like?
Yeah, they're really simple. Everything we try to do is try to keep things simple and easy. Um, by while we advocate for our clients. So number one is just we'll sit down, we'll understand your situation, understand your needs and wants, understand any of the challenges that you might see or forecast or concerned about, right? And then what we want to do is create a goal, right? Whatever that goal is, we want to be clear on what that is, because once we create those parameters that you're looking for, then we're going to figure out what are the options, what are the different routes to go. Like 15 minutes before this webinar, I called a guy that was going to buy a single family home, and he changed his mind. He said, you know what, maybe I'm just going to put equity out and buy a townhouse. And then we started creating strategies for him. So know that things can change, and we're very adaptable to those changes. He's really excited now to find something that better fits his job and it better fits his life and his family. So we want to learn those options that are available. Once we do that, we just put a timetable on, and we get the team approach to it, where we have our lender and our buyer's agent and our inspector all ready in line, ready to go. Should you find the right property, we can execute and not have to worry about stumbling or tripping or falling on anything, because we're going to uncover pretty much all the problems that you're going to see. Yeah. And we like this saying, nobody really succeeds alone, right? You need it takes a village sometimes to get to places.
Thank you for sharing, because that's what we do for you. And if you would like to have a strategy session, we are available for you to do those 5 steps that you heard of today, and also continue to feed you with resources as you have heard today on the 7 ways to counsel. I always like my slogan is, I want my buyers to feel like they are real estate agents at the end. I've had numerous say, I want to become a real estate agent after this is over, because you're going to be that good in being able to feel empowered and educated on what's taking place, and also to be able to help others. If you would like a strategy session with us, please feel free to give a call. Number is here for you today. We love to sit down and customize this and make sure that you meet the goals that you have for your life. Thank you so much for joining us. And you might say, what is the Ahara team? Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. Today, you have been graced with the presence of the founder, Dan Ihara. And I mentioned in the beginning what's called the complete solution. It's almost like a one stop shop. And Dan is briefly going to break down what that looks like for you.
Yeah, 15 years ago, I started in real estate, and it came out of a situation where I was in a transition looking for a different job and bumped into this career. And then my wife Julie started a year after me, and we started, we got in the top 100 in our first full year of real estate. And ever since we've been growing and continuing to serve folks, we've helped over 1,130 families reach their goals. And so we're very honored that we get to serve and really help people change their life, right? Reach their goals. Because, as you said, Michelle, it's the biggest decision you're going to make, right? Outside of getting married and maybe having kids, right? So we started that. We have a large team now, of buyer specialists, listing specialists. We've got a marketing team. We've got a social media team. We've got a client care department, a large organization that helps all of our clients, because what we do takes a village to do it well at a high level, right? And then 10 years ago, we started a company called Senior Move Managers. Now, Senior Move Managers in Deepwater, Hawaii, were designed to help older adults transition. Right? We found was, as we were helping people sell their homes, they were challenged by, what do I do with my stuff? Where do I go? How do I get there? Who can help me? And we brought the solution to the state of Hawaii. We were the very first company of its kind here. We have actually obviously the largest. We've helped over 1,000 families move from where they are to where they need to go. And then we also started serving investors, right? These investors said, I want to buy an investment, but I don't want to manage it anymore. So we started a company called High Property Management. And now we have about 155 doors that we manage at a really high level. And our clients are very excited and pleased to know that they don't have to go look for another solution for that building wealth and creating a legacy through their properties, because we have that solution for them. As folks are selling their homes, we knew that how it looked was really important. And we also found that people didn't want to do staging because it was very expensive. So we created a solution for them. And really, this company practically only services our clients, because we can provide that service at a discounted rate for them, so that it's more digestible for them, so they get the benefit of the staging. And when you look at our marketing and all of our listings, and you go to our website, you'll see the impact of that staging, which really attracts so many buyers, and henceforth makes it easier for us to sell real estate. Lastly is Silver Spoons. Is our nonprofit designed to help older adults who cannot help themselves. There are over 16,000 older adults in the state of Hawaii who are in tough positions, that are in state housing, and we often get phone calls from Elderly Affairs Division, Adult Protective Services, Child and Family Services. These organizations are begging somebody to go out and help them clear it up because it's not safe, right? Imagine having an 85-year-old lady getting kicked out of her house that is at a state level support system. Where does she go? Right? And we don't ever want her to go to the street. So we go in and we provide the love and the care and the compassion, physical services of helping them clear it out to make it safe, to keep an enjoyable environment, but also allow them to feel a sense of relevance and dignity as they go through this process. So we've been blessed to be able to provide tons of services to a lot of people through real estate, people with money. And about 5 years ago, we were called to serve those without money. So we take 10% of our profits through our for-profit entities, and we pour it into the needs of those who cannot serve themselves. And that's our big why, right? If we can provide greater needs and provide solutions to all types of people, whether the wealthy, as well as the unfortunate, I believe we're called to do that. And we've got amazing people, just like Michelle, who's actually helped us through your church, right? We've helped.
Yeah.
Remember the guy that we helped? Oh my gosh, clear out his place. Wouldn't have been possible without your group. So Michelle's been an instrumental part of all of our companies. And yeah, we invite you to give us a call. If you have a question about real estate, give Michelle a call. And lastly, I'll end with just why we do what we do. It's a real simple mission. It's really to honor God by serving others with the highest level of competency, care, and compassion with uncompromising integrity. And that's our team here.
As you've heard Dan share his heart, this is why I joined, because not only can you feel it in the mission, it's driven by the vision, and it was all about serving. And I could not be in a better place, but with the Ahara team to serve and to serve with excellence. And we do hope for opportunity to serve you or your loved ones or those that you care about, because you know in our hands that we're here to serve and we're here to do it with all diligence provided to us. So thank you so much for joining us. And visit us, of course, on our website, aharateamhawaii.kw.com. As you've already seen on the chat, please go back. We have some amazing webinars. This one was awesome, but we try to make sure we cater in every area. So declutter, if you're like those, it's like, oh, I need to declutter my house. Guess what? There is webinar series just on that. If you are the savvy investor and you're looking to build wealth, well, guess what? There's a webinar out there that Dan has done just for you. So please connect with us and allow us to serve you. Thank you for your time on today.
Yeah, do we have any questions on Facebook or anybody here in the group? Love to spend a few minutes. I know we're a little over schedule. If anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer anybody's questions. Gary, do we have any questions right there? Okay.
Not at the moment, but we do appreciate you on Facebook. And a lot of times it's you may not be live and you may be catching this at a later date. You know, Michelle had her number out there. Reach out, let us know through Facebook, through Instagram as well, whenever and wherever you're watching this.
Yes. Well, thank you again, everybody. Thanks for coming. We trust that it was of value. And if it was of value, please share this. Please share it with your friends. Like it, share it through social media, through Facebook, or invite your friends to the next ones, because we're doing this every week. We have 1 or 2 seminars every week. And our goal is to add value to folks that are having questions about real estate, so we can help change your life as well. So thanks again for coming. Thanks, MJ. That was fun, as usual.
I know, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. Aloha.
Aloha.